Philadelphia Eagles are in the playoffs once again. You know, it started as a season where they started out 2-4, but they were able to make that run into the postseason, ending the season at 9-8, and still able to get a wild card spot. Here to talk a little bit about that today with me is Locked On Eagles host Louis DiBiase. Louis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cal. Did not think the Eagles were going to turn it around when they were 2-5 to start the year and make the postseason, going 7-2 down the stretch to clinch. Certainly unexpected, but definitely in a positive way.
Absolutely, absolutely. With the first-year head coach, first full year starting quarterback with Jalen Hurts, you know, it was totally unexpected. So that leads me to my first question. What is your biggest surprise for this team for the regular season, and what is the biggest reason that they're in the playoffs today?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise to me, and it shouldn't be a surprise really now that we know who Nick Sirianni is as a head coach, but the biggest surprise to me was them completely changing their offensive philosophy after that 2-5 start. Jalen Hurts, first time as a starting quarterback, as you mentioned, was throwing the football more than pretty much any quarterback in the NFL, and he was not ready for that. So what did Nick Sirianni do after that Raiders loss? He turned the entire offense around to now a team that threw 80% of the time. They now ran it 80% of the time, broke the rushing record in franchise history for most yards in a season. They were the number one rushing attack. They went behind the strength of their team, that offensive line, Jalen Hurts' legs, Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, and they used that as their identity of this team. And that's why they went 7-3 in their final 10 games. And it was literally the tale of two halves of the 2021 season. To me, that's what made the playoffs for the Eagles. And to me, that was the biggest surprise, because there's not a lot of teams, there's not a lot of coaches that are willing to change their entire philosophy halfway through a season, especially in their first year, trying to lay that groundwork down. But it's the reason they're playing deep into January.
While running the ball is their strength, on defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their first round opponent for the playoffs, they're loaded at linebacker with two all-pro linebackers in Levante David and Devin White. Do you think the Eagles' rushing attack is going to be able to sustain them in this type of playoff matchup?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it really is strength against strength in this game on Sunday because, like you mentioned, Devin White, Levante David, they've got Vita Vea at nose tackle, one of the most powerful defensive linemen in the NFL. It is not going to be easy for this Eagles team, but at the same time, that's their strength too, and they can't go away what got them there. They have to run behind that offensive line. Their offensive line is healthy, so it is the Buccaneers' strength, but it's also the Eagles' strength. They do need to have more of a balance, though. Unlike the last game against Tampa Bay, where it was really throw, 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 this game, it can't really be run, run, run either, though. Jalen Hurts is going to have to be on his A game as a passer because, like you said, it is a tougher matchup. And knowing the Eagles' defensive track record against star quarterbacks this year, Tom Brady might be putting up some points. So, you know, although they need to still be a run-first offense, they're still going to need their quarterback to make big throws against another star quarterback. And it'll be a really big test for Jalen Hurts, and it'll help kind of answer some long-term questions about what he can be moving forward as potentially a quarterback you can not only just win with, but win because of. So it's going to be a fascinating matchup to watch on Sunday.
These teams did play once earlier in the regular season. Tampa Bay was able to take that with the 28-22 victory. But like we just spoke about the Eagles being a different team, so are the Tampa Bay Bucks. They're missing Antonio Brown, who made obviously that spectacular exit a few weeks ago. Dealing with Chris Godwin, he tore his ACL, he's out for the year. So those are two big receivers that they're going to be without. So what is the Tampa Bay offense going to look to do to capitalize on the Philly defense? And what does the Eagles defense have to do to slow down Tom Brady?
Yeah, I think with Tom Brady, it's going to be kind of give what the Eagles defense gives them, you know, look-wise, a lot of underneath. You know, he's going to utilize Mike Evans heavily, Rob Gronkowski as well. And I really do think, you know, without Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, that definitely does take away a lot of their explosive ability. But I'm more concerned about with the Eagles defense if they're going to keep that same blueprint they had against Brady and star quarterbacks earlier in the year when they played a lot of soft, you know, deep cover two, you know, zone defense. Darius Slay did not shadow Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, really any receiver. He stayed on one side of the ball. And it just felt like the Eagles were kind of scared to get beat deep by Tom Brady. But Brady pretty much took everything else within 20 yards. So although already they're, you know, handicapped personnel wise, you got to go for it. They don't have Chris Godwin. They don't have Antonio Brown. So don't play scared on defense this week. Go for it. Utilize blitzes, different looks. Let Slay play press man coverage. Avonte Maddox too. I think the Eagles defense really needs to go for it because even without Godwin and Brown, Tom Brady has shown throughout his career that he doesn't need a million star receivers to be the greatest quarterback of all time. He's got a great tight end still, a solid offensive line. There's still plenty of firepower on that Tampa Bay offense. So the Eagles defense needs to be opportunistic. And to me, they need to be aggressive.
If the Eagles were to win this game on Sunday, what does that look like for all of us fans?
Yeah, like I don't think they're capable of obviously blowing out Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers should certainly be the favorite, but this isn't a game I don't think, there's some teams in NFL history that made the playoffs, and the story was really about the journey of getting to the postseason, right? Even though Tim Tebow and the Broncos won a playoff game, over a decade ago, at the same time, the story about that was, I can't believe this team is in the playoffs. For the Eagles, the story is about the journey of getting there with a first-time head coach, a first-time starting quarterback. But to me, this is a winnable game. They need to run the football. They need to be balanced, though. Jalen Hurts needs to be efficient in the passing game. I just think, there's two lessons you can learn from the game earlier this year. And then the last time the Eagles beat Tom Brady in Super Bowl 52. And to me, the lesson of those games that you can take in this one and potentially pull off a win is just to be aggressive. I think it's to be opportunistic and be aggressive because, those opportunities don't come around often with Brady. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So you need to be able to keep up with him on offense. And on defense, like I said, you really just got to go for it. I mean, that's why they won a championship against him, despite Brady throwing for over 500 yards in that game a while back. So I think it's, being aggressive, being opportunistic, and sticking to who you are and what got you there.
While we're hoping for a long playoff run with the Eagles, can't help but look to the future. They're in a little bit of an odd position for a playoff team. They actually know where two of their first-round picks are already slated to be, with the 15th and 16th picks, with picks from the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts in previous trades. The national championship game was just last night. Was there anybody in that game or any other top prospects that you're really eyeing for the Eagles to try to grab at that point in the middle of the first round?
Yeah, so that's the thing with Jalen Hurts, leading the Eagles to the playoffs in his first year as a starter. I'm not so sure the Eagles are going to look into drafting a quarterback in 2022. And like you said, now, they have the 15th overall pick and the 16th overall pick. They could potentially have another top 20 pick as well, depending on what happens on Sunday. So to me, what that's going to be all about is bolstering the defense with young talent. Because on offense now, you already have Landon Dickerson. You've got Jordan Mailata. You've got your offensive line of the future, a lot of those pieces, potentially your quarterback, your wide receiver one, your running back, your tight end. So to me, what Howie Roseman and the Eagles front office needs to do with these picks, and you saw a couple of those guys last night, is start to add young talent on defense, specifically on that second and third level. Linebacker, safety, corner, Nakobe Dean from Georgia yesterday. It was hard to not watch somebody like that, a linebacker that can cover that much space. He can, cover, he can play well against the run, physical, athletic. That's a player the Eagles really have not had in a while. And considering the way Jonathan Gannon likes to use his defense, he gives up a lot of space in that middle because of the zone concepts he uses. There's more need for an Eagles linebacker now than ever. They've never taken a linebacker in the first round in the last 35 plus years. So I'm not predicting it to happen, but I think they really need to add, even if it's not a linebacker, but it's a Malcolm Jenkins like safety roamer that can play on both levels. They need to get players in space at that second and third level to really help build this future of the defense. So I'd say, linebacker, safety, and corner are the spots that I'm really watching heading into draft season.
Ultimately, like I said, we're hoping that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to pull out this win in Tampa Bay on Sunday. You can watch it right on Fox 43 here at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Watch those Philadelphia Eagles take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, for any preview, post-game coverage, everything, the Locked On Eagles podcast with Louis DiBiase, Gino Camilleri. You can catch it every day and anytime, anywhere you get your podcasts. Thanks, Louis, for joining us today.
Thanks, Cal.